America's largest saltwater lake has lost half its surface area. The Great Salt Lake has shrunk from 1,700 square miles to roughly 800, an area larger than Maui, and has vanished. Even after the 2026 snowmelt, the lake still sits more than 5 feet below minimum healthy elevation. But this is not a drought story. That exposed lakebed has been hiding something far worse for over a century. Half a lake, gone. The numbers are blunt: 1,700 square miles, now whittled to just 800. That is nearly 900 square miles erased, more than 800 left as bare, cracked earth. The exposed playa stretches farther than the eye can track, a pale wound in the desert, shimmering with salt and dust. USGS gauges confirm it. After a brief spring rise, the water peaked at 4,192.6 feet, still 5 feet below the minimum for a healthy lake. Even with the 2026 snowmelt, the surface barely budged. The lake sits at its lowest annual high ever recorded. Satellite images show the retreat, a shoreline crawling backwards, marinas stranded, islands now tethered to the mainland by salt flats. Utah's Department of Natural Resources calls it a prolonged, low-level episode. But the raw figures do not capture the scale of exposure. 800 square miles of lakebed, open to wind and sun, no longer hidden, no longer safe. The crisis is not theoretical. It is right there, on the ground, every time the wind picks up. Snowfall in Utah's Wasatch Mountains depends on the Great Salt Lake. When cold winter winds sweep across the open water, they pull up moisture, building clouds that dump powder on resorts from Ogden to Provo. Scientists estimate this lake effect delivers about 15% of the region's natural snowpack, fuel for a ski industry worth $1.2 billion a year. Lose the lake, and the legendary snow thins. The ripple hits hard: fewer ski days, lost tourism, jobs on the line. But the consequences stretch far beyond the slopes. Each spring and fall, millions of birds, snow geese, avocets, pelicans, touch down on the lake's wetlands, resting and feeding along the Pacific Flyway. These marshes are irreplaceable. The American Bird Conservancy counts at least 10 million migratory birds using the Great Salt Lake each year, including threatened species that have nowhere else to go. Beneath the surface, another world powers a global industry. The lake's hypersaline water breeds brine shrimp, tiny, resilient crustaceans that lay eggs by the ton. Every year, harvesters collect over 60,000 tons of Artemia cysts, supplying nearly 40% of the world's brine shrimp eggs to fish farms in China, Europe, and the Middle East. Without stable water levels, the shrimp disappear, and so does a $500 million export economy. The Great Salt Lake isn't just a local feature. It's a linchpin, holding together climate, wildlife, and livelihoods across the West. It didn't start with dust. It started with a signature. In 1907, the Weber River Decree carved up the flow, allocating water rights that would echo for generations. The paperwork looked routine, but every diverted stream, every acre irrigated upstream, meant less water for the Great Salt Lake. The numbers are relentless. 2/3 of all upstream withdrawals now go to agriculture. Alfalfa fields, green in the desert, drink the lion's share. The water doesn't stop at Utah's borders. Bales of alfalfa, pressed and loaded, ship out by the ton, feeding cattle in China, sustaining dairies in Saudi Arabia. Utah's rivers, transformed into fodder for global export. Behind every shipment, the lake shrinks a little more. Historical records show a steady siphoning, irrigation ditches, canals, and pumping stations multiplying through the 20th century. By the 2020s, the state's own irrigation surveys confirm the scale. Alfalfa alone accounts for nearly 66% of upstream use. The water leaves the basin, but the consequences stay. Each acre of thirsty crop is another acre of exposed lakebed. The collapse isn't an accident. It's the endgame of a system built on extraction, not balance. The lake's decline is written in water rights, enforced by policy, and exported in every bale of hay that leaves the valley. A white crust stretches across the old lakebed, brittle as bone and sharp underfoot. Where water once lapped, only silence remains. The Smith family's farm sits on the northern edge, a patchwork of empty furrows and withered leaves. 3 generations have pulled carrots and onions from this ground. Now, every gust carries a sting, salt, dust, something bitter that clings to skin and throat. Last spring, a windstorm rolled through Farmington Bay. The next morning, a gray film coated the lettuce and tomatoes. By June, the leaves curled inward, yellowed, then dropped. The Smiths ran the numbers. $12,000 gone. No harvest to sell at market, no money for seed. "We've never seen the land turn on us like this," says Mark Smith, voice flat, eyes fixed on the horizon. "It's not just dust, it's poison." The old dock behind their house tilts uselessly, stranded hundreds of yards from the nearest water. Rusted bolts, warped planks, a playground for the wind. The lakebed glitters in the sun. Salt crystals, flecks of gray, a shimmer that hides the taste of metal. At dusk, the air grows heavy. The family keeps windows shut, air purifiers humming. But the dust seeps in, coating kitchen counters, settling on breakfast plates. The state calls it a prolonged low-level episode. The Smiths call it a crisis. Their story isn't rare. Dozens of small farms along the shore report the same. Ruined crops, sick animals, fields that won't recover. The exposed lakebed isn't just a scar on the landscape. It's a threat that grows with every dry season. And the real danger, scientists warn, lies in what is carried on the wind. A thin haze drifts over Farmington Bay, catching the morning sun. The dust settles on playgrounds, gardens, and front porches. Each particle, a microbomb packed with arsenic, mercury, uranium, and lead. Utah's new dust monitoring network blinks red. PM10 readings spike to 150 micrograms per cubic meter, matching the EPA's legal ceiling. On some days, the numbers go higher. The monitors ring the lakebed like silent sentinels, logging every gust, every surge. Janice Bronny, an environmental scientist, scans the latest lab results. Her team's samples from Farmington and Bear River Bays show arsenic at 150 milligrams per kilogram of soil, more than 7 times the EPA's risk threshold. "This isn't background noise," she says. "This is a public health emergency." The data is blunt. In Farmington Bay, cadmium and lead routinely exceed federal safety levels. Mercury, antimony, and uranium turn up in dust blown straight into suburban Salt Lake. On windy days, PM10 surges past 120, sometimes 150 micrograms per cubic meter. The state's own reports list these as episodic exceedances. For families downwind, that means headaches, asthma attacks, and a slow, invisible threat seeping into lungs and bloodstreams. At a legislative hearing, Representative Daniel George doesn't mince words. "If we continue to let this lake dry up, it will become an environmental nuclear bomb, destroying our children's health and our economy." His warning lands hard. The evidence is no longer abstract. It's measurable, traceable, and it's drifting through open windows tonight. Every dust storm now carries more than salt. It carries proof. The exposed playa is ammunition, data that's turning into lawsuits, policy fights, and a growing sense of alarm. The lakebed isn't just exposed, it's loaded. In 2023, the gloves came off. Earth Justice filed suit against the state of Utah, accusing officials of betraying their public trust duty to protect the Great Salt Lake. The complaint reads like an indictment: failure to act, failure to warn, failure to keep the lake alive for future generations. Their lawyer told the judge, "We are not asking for miracles. We are asking the state to follow its own laws. On the other side, state attorneys clung to water rights doctrine and procedural delays. The docket stalled. No injunction, no rescue. Meanwhile, inside the Capitol, a slate of bills promising restoration and water transparency hit a wall. The 2025 session ended with both measures buried in committee, smothered by agricultural and mining lobbyists. No floor vote, no new funding. The clock ticks, but in the halls of power, the crisis remains paperwork. Scientists warn, the lake may have less than 5 years before collapse. Lawmakers argue over commas. Benjamin Abbott's warning lands like a siren in a sleeping city. In his BYU report, the language is clinical. Collapse within 5 years if nothing changes. Terminal desiccation, not drought. Abbott's models show the lake cannot recover if it drops below 4,188 feet for long. That threshold was crossed in 2022. He calls it a point of no return. By 2030, the ecosystem may unravel, brine shrimp gone, birds vanished, dust storms constant. Joel Ferry, Utah's Natural Resources Director, stands by the official line. He says, "We're monitoring, we're acting. The situation is serious, but not irreversible." But the numbers do not blink. The Aral Sea lost 88% of its water in a generation. Its dust now poisons millions. The Great Salt Lake's own numbers line up year by year, like a slow-motion disaster. Scientists argue over months, not decades. The clock is running, and no one agrees how much time is left. The air tastes of salt and metal. State officials promise adaptive management, but arsenic dust levels now breach EPA danger zones right outside schoolyards. Scientists warn, this isn't drought, it's terminal desiccation. The lake's fate isn't pending, it's underway. What happens next blows downwind. Drop your thoughts below.